So welcome to Scrapbook Live. My name is Megan Jacks. Today is Friday, August 8th, and we are going to be on Fridays from here on out. The school year has fully kicked off here in Arizona, so I am back to Fridays. Wednesdays are an early release for my youngest, and so it's much easier for me to be on Fridays when he's got a full day of school and he won't be off that bus until 3:30 or so. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about sketches. It's timed perfectly. The Creative Memories virtual crop starts this afternoon. You guys will be opening your secret boxes. Very, very exciting to see all of the beautiful stuff that's going to be shown in the virtual crop group this weekend. But I wanted to talk about the scrap journal and sketches because Creative Memories is kind of, I don't want to say they're revamping the scrap journal. It was known as the Happy Album. It is now known as the Scrap Journal. They're giving it what they call a glow up. They're just making it, refreshing the product line a little bit. We had some new album covers come out with Spargo pages. If you're not, white's not quite your thing and you like that more pleasing neutral that is Spargo, those would be available. And Creative Memories has told us that we can expect to see more scrap journal related products, especially coming into the new year. So I'm very excited to find out what that's going to be. But in the meantime, let's work with what we've got and talk about ways that you can use the scrap journal, just thinking a little bit differently than 12 by 12. For different things. Anything that you need a gift album for, the scrap journal is going to be a perfect place to start. It's a nice size, not quite as small as an 8 by 8, but not quite as big as a 12 by 12. Sits on the shelf beautifully. It sits on your standard shelf. You don't have to worry about having a specific size shelf to work like you do for the 12 by 12s. The scrap journal is great for that. So, but today we are going to be talking a little bit of math, but I made the math easy because I've got a chart for you. There is a link in the, if you're watching this live on Facebook, there's a link in the comments. You can go to my blog post that has the chart. You can also, if you're watching this on YouTube later, there'll be a link to my blog that has the charts and the handouts for today. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to my overhead camera and we're going to talk size first. And we're going to talk about the big squeeze that happens when you take a 12 by 12 sketch and you need to convert it down to the scrap journal size. So let's go ahead and jump there. Here we go. So I've got just a quick note on the website. You will see the conversion chart is actually 3 pages. I have all of the conversions on there. So there is taking your 12 by 12s down to smaller square sizes like 6 by 6, 8 by 8, and so forth. There's one that will let you do 8.5 by 11. I know we've got some legacy people out there that do like that size. And then the conversion down to the 6.5 or 6 3/4 by 10, which is the scrap journal. It was also known as the Happy Album. So Happy Album, scrap journal, 6 3/4 by 10, all the same thing. They're now being called the scrap journal. So let's talk about how this looks. And one of the reasons why I talk about it, I forgot to mention this, Creative Memories has a ton of ideas out there for 12 by 12s. And it's really easy for us to think how it looks to take a 12 by 12, a square, down to an 8 by 8, right? It's just you're shrinking everything proportionally into a smaller size. So you can use the conversion charts that I have to do that, but it doesn't really look, it looks smaller, but it doesn't look any different. Whereas a scrap journal or the 8.5 by 11, because we are squeezing things a little bit more side to side and kind of shrinking it down, there is some skewing that happens. And so it can be a little harder to conceptualize how it's going to change. So hopefully this will give you some ideas of how this works. So we have a 12 by 12 paper here. And then this is a sheet of paper that I've cut down to the scrap journal size. So if we look at this, just the base paper itself, you have our square and then we have our 6 3/4 by 10. So what's happened is we have really squeezed this in to narrow it, but only taken a little bit off the top. And if you look at your conversion chart, if you're really into numbers, you can see when you just look at the 1 here, how much we've changed it. To go from a 1 inch and scale that down to our new 6.5, 6 3/4 inch wide, we actually remove 44%. We shrink this down by 44%, not quite half, almost half. But look, when we scale down our 12 by 12 down, we're only taking 17% off. We're only taking a little bit off the top relative to how much we're taking off the side. So what does that mean? That means when you convert a 2-page layout look how squished it is. We have put the squeeze on the layouts. Same thing, you really notice it here in the second sketch we're gonna do. Wonderful circles. Look, we have squeezed it, and now they look like ovals. So there's a couple reasons I realize it's very difficult when you're looking at a sketch and you're thinking, Megan, how am I going to be able to conceptualize what it looks like when you put the squeeze on? I did this in Photoshop, and I know that's not possible. But one thing I think it would just help is to realize is when you're looking at a 12 by 12 sketch, you're going to squeeze it. And so you have to really think, what is wide? Let's look at photos, because the upgrade I did to this is I gave you some photo references. So instead of having to look at a chart, if there's a 4x6 photo on the sketch or the 6x4, you can just review here and you can find some common measurements, common sizes of photos and what their scrap journal size is. So I want you to keep that in mind. But let's look what happens to our photos. Visually, we can look at our 12 by 24 2-page layout, see that lovely 6x4 landscape photos. When I come down here, look at it, really goes like square. And I have that here to show you. So here is a 6x4 photo. And this is the scaled version on the scrap journal. What I want to point out with this and why the size and the ratio matters, if you are looking at a sketch that has a 4x6 or other landscape photo over here and it has designs, decorative detail over here, something else going on, you can't really just take a 4x6 and move it over. You need to scale it appropriately so that you still have that room on the side. If you like that room on the sketch, if you like that detail, you need to be able to scale things appropriately. So what you'll want to do is just make sure that you're keeping that in mind. The horizontal photos are really going to become very square-like, but let's see what happens when we come here with a 4x6. So now it's in a portrait orientation, 4 wide by 6 tall. When we put that squeeze on, look how much that changes. This is almost what I would consider, I don't want to say it's unusable, but it's very much a challenge to find a photo that you can crop down to this ratio. It is more than, it's like definitely like a panoramic, I guess, but on its side. So if you have a situation like this is where you're going to have to just kind of use a little bit of logic and do what's best for your photo or your layout. If you have this type of situation in your sketch and you have a bunch of space over here for something else, what you may need to do is come in with a couple of square photos. So it could be 2 1/4, like 2 2 1/4 inch squares. You could probably make some 3x3s or 2.5 inch squares work. You could come in here at the top and the bottom with some, you really have to play around with the sizes that are going to work to scale for you. And what really might work well for you is to come up with making some photo template placeholders so you can get an idea of the sizing that's going to work best on here. I did see Judy's comment asking about the name change. When Creative Memories came out with the Happy album in 2000, I think it was 18, that was really when the Happy Planner was really hot and heavy. You saw it everywhere in the craft scene. It was a very big thing. So I think they were kind of like trying to play on that Happy Planner, the Happy album. And yes, junk journaling is a thing these days. It is also offers a little bit more flexibility into the nature of what we want or what the album can be used for. It's not just about planning. It's not just about photos. It can be much more beyond that. Journaling, photos, mementos, all the things that we think of in our scrapbooks, but really just kind of, I think, playing on the popular name that is currently trending right now. So I want to show you really quickly, another common size is the square. So here's a 4x4 square. A 4x4 square gets smushed, gets squeezed, mostly down to a 2 1/4 inch width. and then gets pressed down from the top to be 3¼ This is actually a nice size. This 2¼ by 3¼ is a good size. 2¼ or 2×3 you can actually get on some 4×6s if you do collages. That will be something you will want to learn how to do if you're going to be working with the smaller albums, the scrap journal, the 8×8. Learning how to manipulate your photos and make collages out of them that can be printed on a 4×6 is going to make your life just wonderful. It can be a little more challenging if you are used to printing mass 4×6s. You just always print 4×6s in mass from wherever. This might be a little bit more of a challenge. Some of the people I've talked to that do the scrap journals, and I know when I do 8×8s, and even scrap journal stuff that I have done, is a lot of custom printing. And it's not something to shy away from. It's just a new skill set you have to learn. It will be a great reward, and it's a nice skill set that you can actually bring back into your 12×12 projects. So don't think that it's something you only have to do for the scrap albums or the smaller books. It does come over here when you're doing the large albums as well, if you want to fit more photos on a page. All right, so the first layout we're going to put together is going to be from the September 2024 virtual crop. It's sketch number 8. That was a worldwide virtual crop. And I picked this one because, I don't know, it looked pretty easy. I didn't want anything too complex. And it's going to let us talk about some of these various things of like 4×6s as they get compressed. What am I going to do over here with these 3×4 photos? We already saw how vertical photos, they get real squeezed. They get really squeezed down. And you can see that when I come in here to the bottom. That 4×6 kind of pulled itself into a square, but look how tall and skinny these 3×4s are. Now, there is a bunch of 4×4s along the middle, kind of toward the bottom of the page. They are all right next to each other, so they go from one end of the layout to the other. You can do the same in the scrap album. You're just not necessarily going to have squares. You're going to come in more with that 2×3 or 2¼ by 3¼ because that's what those 4×4, it shrinks down to this. And this is a decent size. You just have to realize that you don't need a square photo. You're going to need a portrait or a vertical photo to do this. You could take this into a square, but the thing to note, 2¼ is going to go across a scrap album page 3 times because I'm going to end up 2¼ times 3 is 6¾ So that's the size I need of my photos to go all the way across. I can alter the height. I just need to maintain the width if I want to replicate this part across the bottom. Now, another thing here to note is I looked up these measurements here, and anything that goes from top to bottom of the sketch, I know is going to be 10 inches tall. I just know it's going to be. So I'm really only focused on converting these numbers. So the first one is a 3-inch wide piece was used on the 12×12 or the 2-page 12×12 layout. When I convert this down, it comes down to about 1.75 inches. How did I do that? I went over here to my conversion chart. I came down, I looked for 3 inches, and it says it is 1.69. I rounded that up to 1.75 because I am not going to attempt at all to trim that to 1.69 inches. So it's 1 3/4. Then what I just did with my pencil and really small letters that you can hardly see or numbers, I wrote 1 3/4. I did the same thing over here. It's a 4-inch wide piece on the original. You can see there, the 4 inches. Down here, it converts to 2 1/4. The rest of the sketch is actually made on a background piece of paper, so they only add 2 pieces of paper, and that's how you get those measurements. And it's the same on both pages. I am focused on the background. That is probably the one tip that I can give you when working with a 12×12 layout, taking it down to the scrap album size. First, focus on the background because everything else can be really flexible around your background, and your background can be very flexible as well. You're just going for the overall vibe. What's my vibe? I got some tall strips as my background paper. I've got a whole set of photos across kind of that lower section of the page, and then I've got some other photos across the top. That's it. Now it's just a matter of getting the sizes to work in this album size. So let's go ahead and do that. I, for this layout, do not have actual photos to work with because I'm going to take some pictures of Kitty. She's been itching to go outside. I have a harness for her. I just haven't taken her out because it's so hot. So I'm going to make this layout anticipating that I will eventually get her outside. And so that's the vibe I'm going for, taking a cat outdoors. So with that in mind, here's my scrap album pages. Let me, though, really quick, put on my cutting mats. I will need those. My cutting mats need a real good bath. I was just thinking that as I was looking at those today, like, oh my word, they are dirty. So here we go. Here's my 2 album pages. And I have already cut my background strips. So I've got the sun piece is the narrower piece, and it is 1 3/4 inches. And then I've got the other side I cut at, oh, excuse me, the 1 3/4 inches, and then the 2 1/4 is this diagonal kind of aqua color. Now I'm adjusting the background a little bit because they show having the narrower piece on the outside, but my narrower piece is my sun's because I didn't want that to be, I wanted more blue to be on here than I wanted the sun's. So I'm going to have my larger piece to the outside and so forth. And it's going to be centered, so roughly about the same space on either side is based on what they have for the sketch. Now, they do have a border detail at the bottom where there's going to be some photos. And the one thing to note about some of these like border details that come in here, they show this as a 1-inch border. And it's roughly still 1 inch. It's about 3/4 of an inch when we shrink down. A 1-inch piece shrinks down to like 0.83 or something. So, you know, anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 7/8. A lot of times we are used to seeing these as things you can make from border punches. And that is probably the one challenge of this size stuff is our punches are, we can't always just, well, we can't at all shrink them down to size. So we still have to kind of work within the parameters of our punches and get those to work. So I went with, I'm going to use the Grass BMC. I still need to cut this to width, and it's going to come in here. But what you can see, I am focused on the base background of my layout, because once I kind of get that done, then I'll be able to come in and add all my other details. I will say for this type of a sketch, if I am printing at home, I will probably put the sketch together and then go print my photos. Like I would figure out what, I would print my photos on demand for this sketch. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut some photo placeholders. I'm going to use the Canary cardstock. And I need these converted into they're 4x4 squares in the original. That's going to go clear across both pages. I need 6 4x4s. That changes though, look here, 4x4 to 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this at 3 1/4. Or yeah, 3 1/4, and I'll cut some at 2 1/4. I could just cut it to I could just cut this to 6 3/4 inch wide, and that just takes the space. But I really want to show you how it works. Yes, thanks, Maureen. Sandy's asking, where can you find the conversion chart? It is in the link. If you're watching this live on Facebook, there should be a comment from me that has a link to my blog. It's a download from there. If you're watching this on YouTube later, you can catch it in the description of the group or of the video. So let's see here. I need just one more, but I think I'm actually going to use this size on another spot on this layout because I really do like this size. This 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So how this will sit in here is I will have, these will all come across my page like such. You guys can't see the distinction between them, but I promise you there is a distinction between each one. And then I can even see how that size starts to fit up here at the top. If I want to use that same size as a couple of smaller photos up top. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. I do need to put my border on. Now, one thing to note about my border, I want my grass to overlap into my pictures. So what does that tell me? It tells me when I go to print my pictures, I need to make sure I leave a little bit of space at the bottom that I'm not worried if it gets covered up. So that's something to think about. Rather than having a border that would sit right here like flush where you can see the entire photo, when I go to print these photos, I know I'm going to cover up a little bit of that photo right here at the bottom. And so I need to make sure that I don't have like her nose down here or something like that. I want to give their space at the bottom. Same thing over here. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim these to the correct size. They need to come in at 3 1/4 or 6 3/4. One thing I will tell you, I work a lot with top loading pages. That is my preference. When you are working with the scrap journal, since you have a little bit more control, and this would apply to 8x8s as well, when you have a little bit more control on the size, like how much you're covering, like wallpapering your paper, what you can do is actually measure your pages just to make sure they are truly at that 6 3/4. Creative Memories does have a tolerance. There's a certain, like maybe up to 1/8 of an inch tolerance that they allow in the manufacturing process. So sometimes it can be a little frustrating if you're wallpapering your background or doing something that's width to width and you're like a 1/16 of an inch short. Like, man, if I'd known that, I would have cut it a little bit longer. That's harder to do when you're working in a 12 by 12 because you're really limited. It has to be, it is what it is. But when you can cut your paper to size, it's kind of nice to think about. All right, so here we go. That's what this is starting to look about. Nice, fresh, airy. Imagine I've got kitty pictures in there and she's like exploring the grass. That's what's the vibe that's going to be going there. So now I can look at my sketch. I've got a pretty substantial picture up at the top, one picture at the top, but look, they do tuck that title in there. So I don't necessarily want to come in with a full, like a big 4x6 here, right? Then there's no space for the title. I want to come in something a little smaller. However, I am not sure that I want to come in with, let me find it, just this. I mean, I guess it depends on how much I need for my title. Like if I think I'm gonna have a big title, this is probably gonna be a good size to work with. If I'm gonna have a smaller title or I feel like I can work my title in a little bit, maybe more down this direction, I could maybe come in a little bit wider, maybe come into 3 1/2 by, 3 1/2 wide. I could maybe go to 4 by 3 1/4, so it'd be a little bit longer. And that's where you kind of are going to play around a little bit. One size I really, really like right now and something to consider, let me find my sample of it, is the 3 1/2, excuse me, it's 3 1/2 by 5. This is a 3 1/2 by 5 photo. So it is 3 1/2 tall, 5 wide. Why do I like this size of photo? Because you can print 2 of them on a 5 by 7 photo. Now you're thinking, Megan, 5 by 7, who has that photo paper? Well, I do because I bought it from Red River. 3 1/2, or excuse me, the 5 by 7 size of paper is actually pretty nice because you can get those 2 slightly bigger than 3 by 4, but not quite as big as a 4 by 6, right? So you can get 2 of them on one sheet, which is a nice use of paper. You can also make a little bit larger. These are, instead of being 2 by 3s, these are going to be 3 1/2 by, or excuse me, 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. So that works nice. So does that mean you need to run out and buy 5 by 7 photo paper? No, But it does mean next time that Red River has a half off sale or some other really nice, or you're buying more 4x6, consider getting some 5x7 paper. It just offers up some flexibility if you're printing at home. If you have that PM400 that does those 5x7s, that's one of the reasons I bought it. I wanted to be able to print larger than 4x6s. And so I can do that with the 5x7s. So this is half of a 5x7. So 5 inches wide, 3.5 tall. And that fits on here pretty good. It doesn't leave me a ton of space over for a title. I would probably need to come in under, but I'm not making the photo so small that you can't see what's going on. But seriously, look at that photo. Does she look grumpy or what? I'm not sure what I did to her, but she gave me I think I touched her foot. I touched her foot and she was mad. So here we go. You can kind of see the vibe going on here. Let me cut one more of these photos to go over on the other side, just to show you kind of what I'm thinking that I'll be doing with my photos. I hope to get outside with Kitty soon. It's been so hot here recently that it's not something I want to take her furry rear end outside with, but you can kind of see how this is going. And then we've got space to still add in some punches. Remember, we can't scale our punches. So think about that when you're looking at stuff, how you're going to do it. You may have to leave yourself a little more space than you normally would have thought of to put in some punches. And maybe I would do something along these lines and then have the title come across here. We have some pieces over here. And I do have, if I need to shift, I could always shift my paper over a little bit and give myself some space in here if I wanted some journaling. So just always remember, do a lot of dry fitting with when you're working on sketches and you're working on your pieces, and move things around to make it work for what you want it to do. So this is how I'm going with this sketch. I could probably come in maybe with another detail if I wanted to bring in. I thought about bringing in a little bit of orange. I have some orange. I'll be using it in the next layout. This fun orange paper this is out of Fur Baby Cat. But I always love working in a little bit of orange because Kitty has that beautiful orangish fur. She's got the orange brain cells to go with it. But just bringing in that orange whenever I get a little bit of a chance there could be a nice added detail to really tie in the colors with Kitty and her fur and just kind of pop that on there. All right, I do see a question from Kimberly. She's asking whether or not these the scrap journal pages do fit into a 12 by 12, and they do. The staples line up. So the staples of the Happy Albert scrap journal do line up in a 12 by 12. So if you wanted to add like a little bit of something to your page without doing a full page, you could definitely do this. I have done I've added in the scrap journal pages when I do like a couple of 4x6, like a 4x6 here, and maybe a journal page or journal mat when I have a lot of journaling to do. So there's ways you can utilize the scrap journal pages in your 12 by 12 albums. All right, so that's the first sketch. Now I want to start talking circles, all right? So you may have saw yesterday I posted, I kind of went crazy with the circles. And that was because I needed to be able to show you guys how circles work on the scrap journal. So I made all the circle sizes in their respective cardstock. So if I cut it with a green blade, I cut it on the green cardstock or the Kelly green, on the cranberry, on the blue, and so forth. I then kept the pieces that I cut out. I cut them into squares first and before I cut them. Let me show you real quick because I know I'm going to get people asking how I did this. And I just really quickly did come up with a little thing to be able to show you. I started with a 12 by 12 piece of paper. I cut it at 7 inches and then 7 inches again because I needed a 7 by 7. You need a 7 by 7 to do the outside edge of the largest circle. This will do the red, the blue, the red, the green, the blue. You can do those on the 3 different colors. You're going to do that. You're going to use a 5 by 5 over here. The 5 by 5 is so we don't use it for number 2. We are going to use it for the outside of the smallest circle. You're going to use it for, let's see, we use it for that. We use it for the inside of this. and you use it, I think, for the inside of this one. So you use it for 3 different pieces. I think so. I'm getting a little confused. I know you need 3, and I'm probably just not visualizing it correctly. So forth. And then you will need a 6. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. Outside, outside. And then you also need inside, and then inside, inside on your the pieces. So that's how it goes. The largest here, the outside edge. Largest, but inside. Smallest circle, outside. The last 5 by 5, you can do the inside of circle 2 and the inside of circle number 1. Remember, when I'm talking about these being named, largest is 3, middle is 2, the baby is 1. You may be thinking, Megan, why don't you just call it small, medium, large? You can until you get to the ovals. And then you have like small, kind of medium, a little bit bigger than medium, and largest. That's why we give them numbers. And so we use the same notation for ovals as we do for circles. Small is number 1, the next size is number 2, and then for ovals, it would be number 3, and then number 4 for your largest. That's why we give them, Lisa, Tessa and I refer to it that way. Just kind of a tip there. Then you will need one more piece of paper, one more piece, and it's going to be the 6 by 6, and that's so you can do circle number 2, the medium circle, and you get those outside pieces. You will then end up with a stack of this. Label them so you know. You can see here, I have labeled it circle number 2. I use the green blade on the inside track. That's my shorthand. Circle 2, green blade, inside track. If you go with the blue, let's see, let's find a blue one that I use. That's, oh, here, outside. So C1, circle 1, blue on the outside track. That tells me how I make this circle. Okay, so let's talk about why I even bothered to do this. The scrap journal size, we're very used to working with 12 by 12 pieces, 12 by 12 layouts. We kind of have a vibe of knowing how the different circles work on a 12 by 12. But when we have shrunk everything down, we've given it the squeeze, we've shortened it up, we are going to start looking at, let me see where it is. That 12 by 12 gets squeezed into a bunch of ovals, but I'm gonna tell you guys, ovals just not doing it for me right now. It's not something I wanted to convert. I wanted to take this back to circles, but I want to keep the same vibe. But what I'm not sure is I'm not sure how that 4 by 4, that 3.5, or that 4-inch circle, the 3.5-inch circle is going to work. But I'm not also sure that I want to go down to a 3.5-inch circle. What if a different size is going to work? Which is why I made the templates. This is going to allow me to come in here and pick out the sizes and see how they look on here. I can move them around. I'm not stuck to the plastic sheet. The plastic sheet, they're all in very fixed locations. This, I can move things around. I can say what's going to work. Now, I also wrote photo on the ones that I know I can cut a photo with, which I mean a standard 4 by 6 photo. So circle number 3, on the inside of circle number 3, I know I can cut photos with that one. So it is labeled. Circle number 1, the red blade on the outside is about a 4-inch circle. I know I can cut a photo with that. However, circle number 1, green outside, I can't cut a photo. This is closer to a 4.25-inch circle. It's too big for a 4 by 6. So this is going to be a matte size. So I want to make sure when I'm thinking about my photos, I'm only using templates that say the word photo on them. And of course, these tiny ones, we know I could cut a photo with it, but goodness, I'm not going to. So we've got some options here. And I know if I want to follow the sketch, I want to have 3 photos. That's what they have, 3 photos there. So just thinking about what am I going to do? These two sizes are roughly the same. Circle 3 green inside is circle 3 red inside. I say it's 3.5, but I feel like it should be 3.25. Nope, it's 3.5. Yeah, it is. It's 3.5. This is going to be about 3.25. So you can start to figure out, do I want a 4 by 4, a 4? let me show you. If I do a 4-inch circle on here and I start matting that, I'm going to grab my circle 1. Actually, it would need to be circle 1, the blue blade, to give me that big chunky mat. And then I would need to come out here, actually coming to circle number 2, the red blade on the outside is a 5-inch square. This is more in line with what the sketch is. It's a 4-inch circle with a 4.5 mat and a 5-inch mat. That takes up a lot of space on my scrap journal, not surprised. So I need to shrink this down. Playing around with it, if I want to use that 3.5-inch thing, and then I'm going to pair that. I can pair that with my 4-inch mat. You can't really see, but I do have that. And then I can see, well, do I want to come out one more? What does that look like? If I use a 3.5-inch circle and I still double mat it, I'm seeing that my blue mat is my largest mat. Okay, that kind of works. Keep that in place. Now what happens if I have another 3.5-inch photo? I think that works. This 3.5-inch photo here, though, is supposed to be matted. So if I came over here to actually have a 4-inch mat, that's kind of tight. I don't have a lot of space. If I'm having a 4.5-inch mat here and I've got to have a 4-inch mat over here, I'm kind of tight. I might actually consider going down to a smaller, and then we start to get into our restrictions of using the circle custom cutting system. We have certain sizes we can do, and if we're really wanting to stick with 3, I'm wanting to stick with a 1/4-inch mat, that chunkier mat. I'm going to need to come down and actually use, out of circle number 3, I'm going to have to use the blue blade on the inside track. So this is what it's going to be. So I know over here, I'm going to need to have a 3.5-inch photo. And then I would need to have a photo over here that's probably going to be closer to, that's like almost a 3-inch photo. Yeah, like a 3-inch circle photo. Okay, that's fine. That's dandy. We've got some sizes. Roughly, I know where I'm going with this. I can always refer back to my things, but let's talk about actually cutting your photos now, because that's where these come in hand. And I know, like I said, you have the plastic guides. They're very, very helpful. Some of you may still have them. Some of you may have gotten rid of them, and we don't necessarily want to buy a whole new set of templates just to get those guides. So what you can do when you have these guides, the reason I like these is it makes it very easy for me to see what guides work with the photos or what circle is going to work. So I already know I need a circle, a 3.5-inch circle. This is a 3.5-inch circle. I already cut it. I wanted to make sure I could do it. I showed you the one I cut it out of. So what I did, let me show you just here really quick. This photo is in here, like such. I grabbed circle number 3, red inside. They match. Circle number 3, red inside. And I lined it up on here until I was happy with where it fit. I liked what was exposed. Then I went and I grabbed my circle 3 template. I put it on my page where it goes, so it's nice and centered. Then what I do here is I have some overlap here where the plastic is on the picture, but the mat or the template is not there. I can put the pressure over here on this edge. I don't know if I can bring this up to show you without wreaking havoc on everything on my desk. Because my goal is to pull the template out, the red template out, without moving my my photo and my template or my circle. Grab it and then pull it. It's all locked into place. I grab my red blade and I cut, and it should work good. I can come up here at the top. I want to do the same thing. I've already marked it. I want to use circle number 3, blue blade inside track. Circle number 3, blue blade inside track. Now I can move it around. Do I even like how this looks? These are all about her face. I think that's going to work good. Again, coming in here, you do have to fudge a little bit with this because it's not as exact as when you're using the red. And then what I can do is try to pull this out without pulling away my, well, it wasn't perfect, but it's pretty good. Keep it in place there. Grab my blue blade. Any place that I'm going to go beyond the bounds of my photo, I'm just going to make sure that my blade is not going to go beyond. The blue is really aggressive. Remember, blue has a pretty wide, you're pretty far from the edge of your template. I'm going to bump this up just a little bit. And there, I've got a circle. Yeah, so Rebecca, I agree with you. The big thing is using these templates is to dry fit your layouts, to get an idea of what sizes are going to work. Make notes on your sketches. Use Post-it notes. If you use Post-it notes, I just put them on the back of the photo like that and notate what I want to cut. So now I've got a 3.5-inch photo. I've got a 3-inch photo. I want to do one more 3.5-inch photo, and I have it notated. My desk is real crazy right now. Oh, it's right here, guys. You're supposed to tell me, Megan, it's right there. I'm actually going to do red inside on this photo. I just love her smooshy face. So circle 3, red on the inside track. I really can't go any bigger on this one because this is a 3.5 by 5-inch photo. So I really do need to stick with the circle number 3. It's going to give me my best results. That looks really good there. Put this on. And I'm going to work to slide my double check and go ahead and give this, I'm going to slide this over to the side just a little bit. More sleepy photos. And then if I really wanted to, because I'm not sure what photos I want to use, I do have this other one. Again, I could come in, circle 3, blue blade, and I can see, I don't think I'm going to worry about this photo. I'll leave it for another project. But I do have a silly photo here that I'm just not sure. It was kind of, she made these ridiculous faces. Like, I don't know, she looks kind of derpy there or whatever. So I thought about including those as well. And I might actually do that where I come in and do a couple of these larger photos with these silly faces, because that really was the kind of the point of this whole session. She was just being ridiculous. I also realized I take photos of Kitty in the same, like in our bedroom all the time, and I need to like take her, make her go other places. I wanted this to be a red blade. Oh, I am bummed. Oh, well, it's fine. I meant that to be cut with the red blade. But now we can kind of see, I've got the vibe going, right? It's some circles on a page. One of the details though that I can see with this is they have circles coming into the corner and then going out at the top. So I will want to make sure I come in with some more circles. But the first thing I do need to do here is I need to cut some mats. So this photo is cut with the blue. Well, let's talk about what I'm using for my layout to begin with. Okay, I am going to be using this sheet that I cut earlier. This is my background. My base page. This photo is cut and it should work. This was cut with the red blade on the inside track, which means of circle number 3, which means the red blade of circle number 1 on the outside track is going to be my first mat, my 4-inch mat. And I have this cut here out of yellow, of canary. Then I need to go a half an inch bigger, which then takes me to using the blue blade on the outside track of circle number 1 to get that 4.5 inch circle. And I cut that in the orange. So there we go. There's kind of like my statement photo, right? The other option is to come in with my little silly face there, but I think I want to give, if I put that there, it looks like she's squeezing her face through the circle, and I really don't want that look. So Liz is asking whether or not I have a tutorial on how to cut the circle templates. I don't, but I'll try to get a video made this weekend. It's pretty easy. I did talk about it a little bit ago with what the sizes of paper you need to cut. If you missed that, it'll be available for you to watch on replay. Now over here, I want to come in with another circle, and I need it in a different color. And I think I'm going to use some of, it's like a mid-tone plaid brown, or I could come in with this one. I think I'll cut this piece. It's like a mid-tone tannish brown. And I'm going to, this is circle number, it's the blue blade inside track. So I need to use circle number 3, this one here, circle number 3. And this I'm double checking, right? My photo, this is my mat, which is circle number 3. It's my largest circle, my red blade, and that's going to give me my mat. All right, I do want to have a little bit of top and bottom. I want to go ahead and factor that in because that is something that's on this layout. And I decided I was going to use this cat paper, the cat silhouette paper out of the fur baby. So that needs to be put on here. I have another piece of it cut somewhere. There's a piece that goes at the top of the bottom. I cut them roughly about 1 inch tall. I could have probably done about 3/4 of an inch. You're just going for the overall vibe. It's how sketches work. I don't know how many, you should put in the comments, how many of you guys do sketches? What in the world? I cannot find the other piece. There's another piece. Well, I'll cut myself another piece then. Oh, nope, there it is. Nope, that's not it. I don't know if I put it in the trash. I might have. Mary's saying that she uses sketches. They're so handy. They're a great place to start. I like using sketches when I'm just not feeling the groove. Maybe it's an early start to my cropping day or whatever it is. It's just a nice place to start. And they're just great because then you just adapt them to however it works best. What I like about sketches is I really like being able to have that reference point then in like the virtual crop group where you can see what everybody else does. How do they tweak things? How do they make something work for them? And that's really kind of a nice feature of, being in the virtual crop group and seeing what's happening in there when everybody's sharing their version of the sketches. And you can say, oh my gosh, I like what you did there. And I can remember that going forward. Oh, this is a similar element to that we had in that last sketch. And this is what such and such did with it. I bet I could do the same thing for my version. So it's like just so wonderful to have that reference point, see how somebody changed it. So if you see the original reference point again, you can rethink, oh, I really liked how that other person did something. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. Maybe I'm not going to get 4 photos on here. I'm a little nervous I won't get all 4 photos on here. I think I only want one of her nonsense photo face. See if we can ask for circle peekaboo pockets. All right, so I think I'm going with something like this. I do need a color here, and I'm trying to think of what it's going to be. So I've got the orange here. Maybe I could just bring in the yellow. I feel like I need a 4th color. And what was that 4th color going to be? Let me grab, because I'm wondering whether or not I can bring in the color I never use. You guys guess which color that is? And I never ever use. Shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Pink. I'm gonna see about bringing in some pink. We'll see. Okay, so if I need pink, I'm gonna have to first get a piece of pink. Could also bring in, I don't have any loose sheets of it though, like a blush would be really pretty, but I don't have any open packs of blush, and I'm not gonna open it up. Oh, that's pink shimmer. I don't want that. I think the pink will be fun. So this is the photo that I need to cut. Or I need a mat for. I just need a single mat for it. And I cut it with circle number 3 red. So that means I'm gonna have to use circle number 1 red blade outside track. If I could find this, I'm gonna have a hard time keeping track of these templates. I can tell you guys that right now. Here we go. That's the size. So let me just take a peek here. How does this fit on there? It's kind of aggressive. But I really don't want these to be super small photos. That's probably the biggest thing I think that I hear about this is using the smaller sizes is we think, oh, I want like these big photos on there. And I get it. I get wanting to have kind of larger photos. It's hard sometimes to get that smaller photo cut from your 4x6s. So if you have the chance to print at home or deliberately print them smaller, maybe don't zoom in quite as much when you're taking the photos or when you're printing them, if you crop before you print. Her sweet little face. Pink's a little intense. I might change that out. Okay, so we have this. Now I want to bring in some of those other colors that are in various size circles. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to overall look at this and see what do I need to bring. So I've got orange and yellow up here. I need to bring some of that orange and yellow down here. So what I'll do is I'm going to come back, and this is great. When you have circles, I can cut the smaller circles I need for accents out of my bigger circles. So out of my largest piece, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab, oh, just a medium-sized circle. I think that'll fit. So that's circle number 2, red blade inside track. That's my medium circle. I'm going to cut it right out of the middle, red blade inside track. This will sit down here. This still goes back up here. And then I'm going to cut, I think maybe a slightly smaller one out of the yellow. Maybe I'll go like, blue's kind of a little small, I think. This would be the blue blade. That's probably fine. Or I could grab my circle punch if I needed to. I actually think green blade mats the circle punch. Blue blade is slightly smaller than the circle punch. So I'm going to use the blue blade inside track, and I'm just cutting it out of the middle because these are mats. It doesn't matter. It's a great way to extend your paper, making little donuts and using the donut holes. Now I want the same thing maybe up here where I'm going to bring in a little bit of the pink. I don't think I'm going to like this pink. I have my fur baby stuff here, and there is more of a softer blushy pink in here. I think that's what I need. This is just like in person is too intense for me. It's just driving me nuts. So I'm gonna look and see if I can find it really quick. If I can't, I'll just do it off camera, and I will have it as the update. Just know that I'm gonna swap that out. That pink is pretty intense. Or I could just come in. I'm gonna come in with a little bit of the white. This is kind of like has a little bit of, it's white, but it's got some soft brown dots in it. And I think I'll do that. So this was circle one, red blade. A little bit of white. I think I'll be okay. There's squishy face. I'm going to bring some of this white up to the top. So I'm going to use circle number 2, red blade inside track. This will come up here. This will still stay here. I'm going to do the green blade on this one. Green blade doesn't get a lot of love out of me. So here's the vibe we're going, all right? But I do want to bring it in, and here's what I'm going to bring in on some of the pink. I've already cut this pink. I might as well do something with it, right? So I'm going to come in with some small circles that I'll tuck in for that little bit of accent. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. I'll do them in 3 different sizes, so I have some choices. A little bit of pink. Don't need too much. I will bring the pink in 3 places. I'm gonna tell you why, because I've got 3 points that I can come in here with, at least the 3 spots. All right, so I have definitely taken up quite a bit of space on this, and I still need to be able to work in a little bit of a title. So I'll probably come in with some smaller of the letters, maybe not the big chunky letters that I use a lot, but I will be able to just come with a little bit. And I'm not sure what, just silly faces or like love your face would be something really cute. Just that I've got some 3 different photos here to be able to do. Now, one thing I will do, as you can see, well, I've got a lot of stuff I have to cut off. I will probably put this together on my base page first. So I'll adhere everything, trim it all up to size, and then I'll get it put onto my Jeeped album page that can go into my scrap journal. So this really came together super cute. I'm gonna bring it up a little higher if I can so you guys can see. I'll adhere everything into place, trim it all up, and then go ahead and stick it down on my scrap mat. And I'll go ahead and I'll probably just use some brown sans serif letters. Those are the real thin ones we have. And it just says, love your face. I might play around with it a little bit. I got a little bit of space here. I don't know. I'll have to play around with it and see what I've got going on there. So that's what I've got for you guys today. As I mentioned before, there is the Creative Memories virtual crop. It's going to start today. So you'll have 4 fresh new sketches that you can give a try, converting it down into a scrap journal size. You can also try converting it into the 8x8 if you're working on that type of size. I do see a question from Joanne asking if they'll think they'll have top loading page protectors. I'm crossing my fingers. I really am. I'm hopeful that they're going to do it. We'll know more in the coming months with how they're going to be updating the product line for the scrap journal. So we'll have more details as that able to release that, or as Creative Memories tells us about that. And then I do see Kimberly saying maybe use a heart out of the pink instead of the word love in the title. That is a super cute idea. I could just do a heart, your face, or something like that. That would be really cute in there. I'll have to play around with it a little bit. That always takes me a little bit to figure out. And I'll probably admit to you guys that I may not get this posted until either later today, maybe even tomorrow morning. I got a couple other tasks I need to take care of today before the kid gets home. And after he gets home, it's usually like Friday afternoon mayhem, right? So, but we do have the Creative Memories virtual crop that is this afternoon. It starts today and runs through the weekend, 4 sketches. You're going to open your secret box. You're going to get a chance to see what there is. I will tell you, it is sold out online with Creative Memories, but if you did not get your secret box or you need more of the secret box, I have them. They're available on my website at meganjax.com on the shopping section. You'll shop my personal inventory and I have those there. And what else is coming up? Power Hour is next week. So it's on Tuesday. I have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe we'll do more with circles because I've got it all out, right? And what else is coming up? Just trying to think of what else is coming up. That's pretty, oh, Croptoberfest. You guys may have saw that I released, or the Creative Memories released the Croptoberfest theme to advisors on last night as at a special webinar. And so we get to see, it's beautiful. It's memories, I think it's memories in the memories are blooming or something like that. It's memories in bloom. So that's really cool to be able to see a great product line for that. I'm very excited to create with those. I'll get my hands on it next week, like many other advisors will. And then Tessa and I will have our free project workshop where we work virtually with you to put together the project recipe and the project booklet. Now, one thing I want to talk about, and I'll mention this again, is that the Creative Memories this year has separated out of the customer bundle. The project recipe itself is not in the bundle. You will order a project recipe and you will order the customer bundle. And when you get that, you get everything. It's a little different than how they've done it in the past. For customers, just know the Croptoberfest products will be coming out end of the month on August 25th. There will be free shipping. They have the beautiful new Grateful Harvest collection is coming out at the same time. So there's going to be some really nice products you'll be able to get with the free shipping. Free shipping did change a little bit. Then there's a new price point or a new qualifying order amount. It's $100 US. And you'll get free shipping, but there's, trust me, some really great stuff. So if you're thinking about ordering, if there's nothing super urgent you need right now, just know that free shipping is coming at the end of the month. I know a lot of you really appreciate to save the money on the shipping. So wanted to give you the heads up that that is coming. And Kimberly's asking if there's new punches coming for September. Yes, we saw like a quick preview of them last night. They were really small, so it's hard to say what they are, but it looks like there's going to be a BMC, a regular punch, and a border punch. So for the fall collection, they've got 3 different punches. For Croptoberfest, there is one punch. It's a chrysanthemum, layered chrysanthemum punch. So it's like punches like 3 different sizes of kind of that like bloom, I guess you might call it. So you'll be able to layer it up in different ways on there. But I'll have all the details for the fall release, the Grateful Harvest. We will have the full details of that closer to the 25th when they release all of that product. So I see another question quickly from Patty. She's asking when a news collection will come out. Creative Memories has been releasing new school collections every other year. Last year they released School Days, so we will not probably see a new school collection until next August, July, August next year. It would be my guess. The Creative Memories on some of these every other year collections is not like to the date every other year, but I would just anticipate we would see something next year. So School Days is what we've got to work with right now. And it's a cute collection. It's a lot of fun to work with. And so, but I know, I get it. We always look forward to new stuff. We have lots of school stuff to Scrapbook. So it's always fun when we get the new collections, just kind of like when we get new baby and new wedding. Which, speaking of baby and wedding, I think we should anticipate seeing those sometime in the first half of 2026. That's on the every other year plan as well. And so the even years is when we see new baby, new wedding, and it sounds like based on their pacing in the past, when we will see new school collection as well. All right. I think that's all I've got for you guys. I'm like the typical Midwest person. That's where I grew up. And they always say like how Midwesterners try to say goodbye, but then like 45 minutes later, there's always something. Oh, but wait. Next week, I have an advisor event that I'm putting on next week. So I will not be doing Scrapbook Live next week. I will see whether or not I can record something that will air about the same time that I normally would have done Scrapbook Live, but there will not be a live video next Friday. I will be back the Friday after that. And I'm peeking at the calendar really fast. I am able to do the 22nd and the 29th, and then I will be gone for 2 weeks. The 5th of November and the 12th of November, I'm going to be in Indianapolis. I don't know whether I'll have a chance to, I might try to go live from there. I'll be at Tessa's retreat the second weekend. The first weekend is an advisor retreat she's doing. Deborah's asking whether or not if I'm able to show what's inside Secret Box number 3. Now, I know what's in there, but I can't show you yet because Creative Memories has not released it, and I'm not spoiling the surprise for anybody who wants to wait and find out. It's beautiful, though. It's gorgeous. Once it goes live, and I will then update my website with the pictures that accompany the collection so you can see what is exactly you're ordering. But I'm sure you will probably see on the blog and in the virtual crop group, and Noreen will be showing it on her video, how beautiful it is and lots of fun that it's going to be. Yeah, Kristen, you're right. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. I really, this one's pretty universal. There's probably some people out there that it's not their thing, but for the most of us, it's a happy place for many, many people. All right, everybody. But don't take that as like the happy place. This is not the happiest place on earth. Okay. It's just a happy place for people. Okay. That's what I've got for you guys. I am now officially saying goodbye for today. Have an enjoyable weekend. Enjoy that virtual crop. Looking forward to see what you guys create. I am going to finish up my stuff, and we'll go ahead and get that posted probably maybe tomorrow morning. All right, everybody. Take care.